Cool. All right. So we're doing a practice interview, and I'm the student. You're the teacher.
So what part of the project did you take on?
My part of the project was to create a project-based learning class. And so I'd set out this summer to lay out what the criteria would be, what it would look like, the potential projects that we could do. And at first, I was really excited about it. I'm going to just use my notes here. I wanted to create something. And so in that something, I started turning it into high risk. I started inviting my supervisors and school board members in on this project, just going high risk because it's kind of like, when an explorer burns his ships, when he hits land, there's no turning back. So I figured, how would you put it? Send it.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. So once I named it, I couldn't turn back.
Just sent it.
That was the goal anyway.
What were your first impressions?
My first impressions, I was super excited about it. I wanted to build an electric bike, but nobody in the class wanted to. So I abandoned that, and the classes all wanted to either go to Page Pond or renovate the courtyard or do something that they picked and designed. And so I was excited, and there was a lot of energy in the beginning.
Perfect. What do you know now about the project?
So things that I know now is like the initial parts are really exciting. There's a lot of energy there. But once we started getting into the more academic side of it, like the research pieces, that energy level dropped. And then for me as a teacher, I started looking for evidence of reading. I started looking for evidence of writing. Things didn't go the way that I expected. I expected that there would be like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And here, check it out, Mr. Heyman. Yeah, check this out, Mr. Heyman. And that didn't happen. And so I took it really personally. And I was kind of like, brokenhearted. I don't know if that's a word for it, but I was kind of let down. So I started to scramble like, okay, what do I got to do now? So I know now that I need certain benchmarks so that people can gauge their progress. I can gauge my progress and students could gauge theirs. Like, where do I fit into this? So I know I need to change that.
And what are you planning on doing next?
So I've started doing some research. I started looking at ways to gauge this process and make changes. I looked at how proposals are written at Dartmouth or Penn State or Purdue and how their engineers are proposing projects. And so I want to adopt some of that into our class. So that's my next move. And I've learned that putting timelines in is important.
All this too?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, what have you read this quarter?
Okay. So I made two lists here. For literature, I read Boys in the Boat, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I haven't finished yet. I read Ranger Confidential, and I read a book called Ishmael. It's about a 600-pound gorilla that speaks to a guy. It's all about philosophy, though. Strangely, I found that there's a connection between that and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. When it comes to nonfiction, like I said, I'd read a bunch of proposals for how you'd organize a proposal if you're at an Ivy League university. And I have read this thing here in the back called the Review of Research on Project-Based Learning. It seemed to apply. And I've read a ton of competencies. Right now, I'm reading nonfiction of Clay, Brick, and Water. It's about a microfinancing in Africa. So that's where I am right now. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with the class. It's just kind of interesting for making a project come to life.
What have you written?
I have written a lot of mini lessons. I've written, most of them have been about how to write an explanation or what goes into an essay. And then along the way, I've discovered a regular use of the writing process, starting with an introduction, a body conclusion, bringing in evidence. I always, as a teacher, I always ignore peer editing. It always seems inefficient to me, but I know that I need to include it.
Oh,
Bless you, sir. So I've written a lot of explanations. I've written no arguments yet, but I want the school to buy a minibus so that we can go on little outings without having to rent a bus. So that's my next piece of argument writing. I want us to make a case for a minibus. Oh yeah. I think that's it as far as things that I've written so far.
About some language that you've learned.
Oh, I would say I've used a lot of the Avid language when it comes to writing. I've picked up a lot of those terms. I never used a forecast in terms of writing, but I've always broadcast like where I was going with my writing, but I've never used that term specifically. When it comes to proposals and timelines and criteria, those are now part of my regular usage as well. I'd used them in other places, but now I'm using them in a new way. Let's see. Yeah, I think in terms of language, that's my biggest stretch right there. Everything is just kind of like a recycling, a reuse of things.
What about speaking and listening? What did you learn from that?
Okay, so you were getting on my case about like what's with you in videos? Like, I think we're modeling speaking and listening right here. So I've made a lot of videos. I've tried to listen to what students are saying. I tried to get feedback, but then I've tried to pay that forward by like having a lasting video, like using my speaking voice. I think that's one of the things I'm really good at. I'd like to get better at something I feel confident with, but I don't feel confident on videos yet. So I want to try that. I want to see if I can expand into that area.
Your green goal sheets. After looking at your goals, what degree were you prepared to meet those goals?
Boo. That one was a hard one for me. In the beginning, I was 5 out of 5. I was like, I'm ready. I'm all in. I like, just sign me up. I want to go for this thing. Here we are in like day 40, and I'm down to a 3. I'm not as confident. I'm looking at the goals, the things that I wanted to set out, the evidence I wanted to show. I'm not. I can't hand over like, hey, this is what we do here. So I feel unconfident with that. So I would rank myself as a 3. I prepared as much as I thought I could, but the reality showed me that I need to do more reading. I need to see more examples. I would like to know what meaningful writing assignments I could give so that students could progress and I can show evidence of that progress.
Yep.
So that's where I am next. I'm at a 3, and to bring it up to a 4, I would need to change my writing procedures, I think.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for the interview.
Whoa.
And we'll pause this right here.